Did you ever think the question, what if a monster could eat things with its wing, would need answering? No, me neither, but answered it has been. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's start where we need to start, the beginning. Okay, fine, yes, genuinely, that is a mouth in a wing that works and can eat things, including you! But again, we'll get to that. Welcome back to the world of Monster Hunter Explore, a long now sadly dead mobile monster hunting game that truly was really quite good. And I would add for a mobile Monster Hunter game, but even then it doesn't really need that disclaimer. But what it had going for it more than anything was some seriously incredible monster design for a spin-off title. But even then I feel kind of bad saying that because genuinely I think a fairly large list of the unique monsters to this game could be just one-for-one slotted into mainline Monster Hunter and they would be absolutely smash hits. I mean, you try telling me that Thunderbubble Mizitsune is not just... Oh! Anyway, Elder Dragon time. There are 3 unique ones to Monster Hunter Explore, and we have talked about our Lord God Death Anubis Master of the Sands, Nefu Garamudo. God, I still love his theme so much. Today, though, we get a little bit more sinister as we talk Morudomunto, the Black Crown Dragon. Let's examine him, what makes him tick, and what exactly he can do. So, of course, as you first look at him, you're going to make the obvious connection of, oh, that's a bit Gormagala Shagaroo Magallery, and yes, he is using that general skeleton-y aesthetic, the wing arms, the kind of cloaky cape look when his wings are folded in, but really, that's where the similarities to those guys end, and look, it is a fantastic monster general aesthetic, and it's one I actually think I really would like them to use more. The Megalas are quite honestly near perfect, and I am not against another Elder Dragon, especially one that ultimately ends up being so different on essentially every level, joining that general visual rank. In any case then, of course, this is an Elder Dragon, as I said, and let's just look at his design. He's the Black Crown Dragon because, well, his horns are arranged in a way that make it look like a black crown. I know, I'm offering massively in-depth, thought-provoking analysis here, but I do want to say that because it's a really both interesting and badass feature. An ornate, intimidating, and sometimes quite vicious-looking head-based display is quite common from birds to reptiles and everything in between. Oh, and by the way, this lovely, quite beautiful lizard that I've chosen with his very much frilly, horny head is the horned lizard. Shocking, I know, but one thing you might not know is his defense mechanism is to shoot blood at you out of his eye. And it's this guy and many other animals and their weird and wonderful behaviors that makes me realize and appreciate that a lot of what monsters do really isn't that ridiculous, at least on a base level, and it really makes me again appreciate just how much effort is put into making them as believable as possible within reason. Anyway, I digress. Combining that general notion with full-on horns is always appreciated and something that can be found in a lot of monsters. But going as far as a full-on adorning crown of this evil emperor type vibe this monster goes for is really, really awesome. And then the actual fur atop his scaling is really impactful, especially that adorning his wing arms. It comes across as a heavy cloak slung over his back. and that with the few scales that are missing, revealing the cobalt blue beneath, gives him this battle-scarred king fallen from grace, and that really suits him. There's a few too many spikes coming out of his wings, and quite frankly, his tail terrifies me, but on the whole, I think he is a really nicely designed Elder Dragon. But that's enough of what he looks like. Let's talk what he is like. Outside of the usual claw swipes and slams and general aggressiveness of the Elder Dragons, and indeed he is incredibly aggressive, he also requires an inordinate amount of energy to fuel his body's metabolism as it produces his signature secretion. But we'll talk about his signature secretion in a moment. He is therefore in a state of constantly killing, consuming, a little bit borrowed from how the Devil Joe do. He is found in more colder, tundra-y Arctic environments where his body temperature is helped maintained by, well, the temperature of the air around him. He runs hot in the production of, again, his signature secretion. It also helps that signature secretion react when outside the body, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself. His claws are sharp, very much rending through armor and into flesh, and as such, he can cause bleeding on hunters who fall prey to his attacks. But we must focus on the wings, as much like the Megalas, they really are where he is unique. They're also where he is incredibly freaky. So his wings can come out, and he can use his wing arms, but his wings also stretch. They're incredibly lightweight and flexible, and he's a fairly strong flyer, but while on the ground, he can quite literally reach out with them. If you imagine your hand, right? Put your hand on your shoulder, so your arm is bent against your side, and then slowly move your hand and extend it as far as you can out from you, trying to reach as far away an object as possible. That is essentially what he does, but with his wings. Then gripping into the ground with that gnarly claw on the end, he can pull himself around the battlefield at great speeds and great distances. It is alarming, but damn is it effective. But then there is more. Oh yes, it's time to get to that delightful pair of mouths. And how often do you get to say that? That delightful pair of mouths. He hides in his wings. See, the middle fold of each wing can actually split open, revealing a gaping red maw lined with sharp barbs. This is a functioning mouth. He can literally grab and eat any unfortunate victim to be caught in its sudden snapping lunge. Now this is absolutely insane, but at the same time, what an idea! Hey, let's give this monster not just the usual face front mouth, but two extra ones. Where? In the wings! Let's give him extendable mouths that he can reach out and grab you with. What? What lunacy! Oh my god, it's horrifying, but it's also really, really cool. Having a connection not just from his face, but from his wings to his stomach is just, I mean, come on. And the thing is, it's incredibly effective, because one thing you're not expecting is to get suddenly bitten by something's extremities. So to say prey and hunters alike are caught off guard and utterly killified by a wing suddenly transforming into a mouth is an understatement. And it is this point, right, where I should, well, point out that Morudomunto, his actual name comes from the German word Mord, which means murder and bite, and then Mund, which is mouth and cloak. So yeah, he's the murdering, biting, cloaked dragon, and I think murdering, biting, cloaked dragon perfectly describes him. So that's the thing. And yeah, I admit that rule of cool is heavily in place here, though then again, certain sponges have multiple mouths. Technically, they can feed out of multiple orifices, so it's not literally unheard of, but on a complex organism like, a dragon, it's certainly an interesting choice. However, that said, let's move on to this creature's signature secretion. He has a huge, incredibly active gland in his throat that produces this dark, tar-like substance. This is what most of the food he eats gets converted into, what most of his energy goes into, and this is very much his secret weapon. See, initially it's fairly harmless, and indeed when it falls to the ground, when he expunges it from either his tail or his mouth, or the vents found on his neck, it just sort of sits in a pool, kind of mercury in appearance, reflective and metallic. It seems to just kind of exist, but eventually it will harden. And it will harden fast, and it will harden in a very deadly manner. Yes, into spikes that make little deadly traps for any hunter who would misplace their footing. And this is obviously quite an effective technique because you can scatter the battlefield in this liquid, which then makes it near uninhabitable for anything except Morudomunto. Now, he does get very angry when you push him a little bit too far, and at that point he starts to glow blue. The vents on his neck stand out, and his entire body is alive with power, overactive and producing this liquid to an almost uncontainable degree. It eventually leads him to his most potent ability. Up on two legs, wings extended, wing mouths agape, he will expel every single drop of this substance that he can, forming a mini torrential downpour of it as it douses the land around him in it. This is obviously very, very bad for all involved, and ends many a hunter with a very serious case of impalement, and it is very, very impressive to say the least. Though if you keep your distance, you tend to be quite okay, and thus he calms down. So you might be thinking, oh, that's a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? Okay, he has wing mouths and he makes metal slime that turns into spikes and stabs things. And on the surface, sure. Though the idea of a substance being produced that then solidifies on contact with air is, of course, nothing too strange. And the idea of an animal producing a substance to help it, again, nothing too strange. Silk from spiders. So if we imagine a world in which he can produce something along the lines of, let's say, sodium acetate, also known as hot ice, and this is something you can make at home with vinegar and baking soda and heat, but essentially this, when you pour it, it solidifies so quickly that you can pour it into a pillar as you go. Now obviously this isn't going to be stabbing through you anytime soon, but the notion that a creature could evolve to generate something like this, at least in Monster Hunter terms, I don't think is the most outlandish design idea going. Yes, the spikes kind of get this nice, perfectly formed shape and almost flourishy pattern to them, so I like the idea of them being shorter, more rough and ready, or even just a substance that hardens in air and makes it rough terrain, that's slower to move through, or slippy, or something that inhibits the hunter in another way as opposed to long extended spikes, but the pure actual concept of substance flung out of monster that turns ground into something else that's bad, I think is really cool and definitely something I can see happening without it being, you know, weird that it does. So that then is Morudomunto. This then is Morudomunto's armor, and it looks absolutely bloody badass. I love the color scheme. I love the fur accents on it. The black with the blue and the white really does get that evil emperor kind of aesthetic, doesn't it? And my god, I cannot get over how much I'm in love with this armor. Seriously, I would be a strong contender for layered for a long time. It really would. So I think he'd need a few little tweaks just to make him fit in just a little bit better. But on the whole, I really do think he is awesome, and at the very least, he is creative. Another example of Monster Hunter Explore's honestly near exemplary monster design, again, for a spin-off. I would love to know what you guys think of him, and honestly I would love to know more about him, because in Explore Monster actual information is thin on the ground. It's not really a game big on ecology, but still, it is nice to see how he does work. Like if you have enjoyed this, subscribe for more, let me know what you think, and please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.